I'm Nadine Chapman, the National Varroa Mite Training and Education Coordinator. We all want our bees to not only survive but thrive with Varroa, once we have it. You may have heard of these terms and wondered what they meant. Varroa tolerance occurs when the mite load is high, but the colony doesn't display serious negative impacts, such as parasitic mite syndrome. With Varroa resistance, the bees keep mite loads low. Varroa resistance has been the main target for selective breeding. Selective breeding involves selecting the best queens to produce the next generation and increase the presence of the trait in the population, in this case, Varroa resistance or tolerance. If you let chemicals do all the work, then the bees will not develop the trait, so it's usually done with no or little chemical use. If you have the most Varroa-defying bees in the world, they won't do much good to you if they are too aggressive to work with or produce little honey, so you need to continue to select for other desirable traits. There can be interactions between genetics and environment, and bees that are resistant or tolerant in one area may not be when they are moved. The advantages of selective breeding are that the queen and her offspring are always in the colony, having an effect on Varroa. It doesn't matter if there's a super on, how much brood, or what the temperature is, unlike with some mechanical and chemical controls. Having Varroa tolerant or resistant bees can mean that you use chemicals less frequently. And this is great, because it lowers the likelihood that Varroa will become resistant to miticides, meaning they can stay in our toolbox. The disadvantages of selective breeding is that it takes a lot of effort to test all of the traits, which need to be done on a large number of colonies. There needs to be good control of mating so that the queen mates only, or mostly, with drones that carry the genes for resistance or tolerance. Even a single generation of outbreeding can result in the genetic advantage being lost. Finally, it doesn't mean that you can forget about mite load monitoring and management. Breeding is just one tool in our toolbox. And I'll now explore some of the traits associated with keeping mite loads low. Uncapping and recapping happens when a worker detects there is something wrong inside a brood cell. She uncaps it for closer inspection, and later the cell may be recapped again. This can happen because a brood cell is infested with Varroa or due to another brood disease. Opening the cell changes the temperature and humidity, and this desiccates or dries out immature female mites and the male, resulting in their death. Uncapping can be observed in the hive as bald brood with holes in the wax. It can also be observed by painstakingly cutting the brood caps and inspecting the underside of them under a microscope. At the top we have a normal cell, while at the bottom we have a recap cell. There is a darker matte area where the silk and wax were removed, and then the wax was replaced. Varroa sensitive hygiene takes it one step further. Workers detect specifically that a brood cell is infested with Varroa. They uncap the cell and remove the contents. This kills the developing female mites and the male. The foundress is displaced, hopefully out of the hive. But if not, she still lost that brood cycle, and she will only have between 1 and 3 brood cycles in her life. Suppressed mite reproduction, also known as mite non-reproduction, includes uncapping, recapping, and Varroa-sensitive hygiene. Varroa-sensitive hygiene is thought to be the biggest contributor, but there are also brood effects. These can result in the foundress not laying any eggs or delaying when she does. In this picture, you see how mature a Varroa needs to be on day 7 post-capping in order for her to be fully mature when the bee emerges. Mites younger than this won't survive. Bees can groom Varroa off themselves, and hopefully the mite ends up on the bottom board and unable to get back in the colony. If the worker isn't successful at grooming herself, known as auto-grooming, then she can perform a dance to induce a fellow worker to groom her, known as allo-grooming. Grooming can also result in damage to the legs and body of Varroa, known as mite biting. This reduces the longevity and reproduction of these mites. You may also have heard of hygienic behaviour. This is tested by killing an area of brood with either liquid nitrogen or a pin and seeing how many brood are removed over a set period. It doesn't translate particularly well to Varroa for several reasons. Firstly, the brood didn't die of natural means and the smell is different. And second, Varroa typically only kills brood at really high mite loads. A hygienic behaviour testing method that is likely to have more effect on mite loads is the UBO test, which is based on the smells associated with unhealthy brood. And Varroa-infested brood are unhealthy. The Australian Queen Bee Breeders Association has started a breeding program based on this test. As yet, there are no recognised Varroa resistant or tolerant bees in Australia. It may be tempting to smuggle some in, but I beg you, please, for the good of industry, do not. Testing on both mites and bees has shown that deformed wing virus and slow paralysis virus are not in Australia, and we want to keep them out. We have a bee quarantine facility in Australia, and any imports through there are screened for viruses and pests. If you do the wrong thing, you risk not just your own bees, but everyone's. And we could end up with these viruses or with Tropicolaps mite, which is arguably worse than Varroa.